In 1775, Thomas Paine wrote a pamphlet stating that the freedoms of men can only be maintained by limiting the power of government. The pamphlet was called Common Sense, and today it still is common sense.
I'm Mark Zaccaria. This is Common Sense. Welcome back.
I'm April Giarrusso. In this week's edition, State Representative Patricia Morgan will conduct a series of interviews with her colleagues in the state legislature. Perhaps it will actually be a caucus of sorts. The topic on all these lawmakers' minds, of course, is what lies ahead for the newly reconvened 2016 legislative session. That four-segment analysis of the expected actions in the General Assembly should give you plenty of insight into what legislative leadership wants for you and how the loyal opposition means to react. Our show will conclude, as always, with words of wisdom from Portsmouth's Jeff Richard. This week, Jeff looks at the topic of cognitive computing. In between segments, Mark and I will pop back in to put some satiric spin on Ocean State Follies, as we ask everyone's favorite question, are you kidding me? Before all that begins, though, we will kick off with analysis of some of the top news stories affecting Rhode Islanders today. Mark?
Thanks, April, and welcome to the show. One of the more noteworthy items of interest as the new legislative session gets started is the impact Senator John Pagliarini will have on the proceedings in the upper chamber. The Republican only won the District 11 seat earlier this month in a special election to replace former Senator Chris Adiano after his midterm resignation. Senator Pagliarini's victory in an evenly mixed district is being touted by many as the outcome of a referendum on Governor Gina Raimondo's truck tolling plan and the big bond it was meant to fund. It's true, District 11, which comprises all of Portsmouth and parts of both Bristol and Tiverton, was ground zero for the Saconnet River Bridge tolls controversy 2 years ago. Still, I'd broaden my focus on the results of this special election. To be sure, the statewide toll plan was a factor, but the performance of both the governor and the legislature featured strongly in the calculations made by many voters. Governor Raimondo campaigned publicly for Senator Pagliarini's Democratic opponent in the recent race, Jim Seveny. So did fellow Aquidneck Islander State Senate President Teresa Paiva-Weed. I'd argue that the virtual lock on state government affairs that's been held by the Democrats for the last 7 or 8 decades was as much of an issue in this contest as anything else. That would make the governor's toll plan just the most recent symptom of the disregard elected leaders seem to have for the voters in general. The cumulative effect was the narrow victory by the candidate who spoke to the people over the candidate who had the machine behind him. What does this mean for the upcoming general election this November? I'd say we will not see business as usual this time around. Sure, it's a presidential year and a Democratic sweep statewide is expected as a result. But what happens if Mrs. Clinton is not her party's nominee? Even if she is, she'll bring all the more emphasis to the shortcomings of the current administrations, both federally and here in the Ocean State. I think the recent results in the Senate 11 special election indicate fatigue on the part of the voters that will open them up to the attraction of a new, more fiscally conservative approach to government at all levels. As election season unfolds, you will all get to decide whether or not you agree with me on that. April?
Thanks, Mark. One of the results of years of mismanagement that could blow up early this year is the financial condition of the city of Providence. Well-known hedge fund manager Mike Riley has been detailing the real dimensions of the crisis facing the capital city in his Go Local Prov column. He used a Facebook post at the start of the new year to indicate that the city is insolvent and technically bankrupt. Riley claims that years of city borrowing from its pension fund have been illegal and have been materially hurting the chances that the fund's obligations to former employees can be met. If union leaders balk at additional borrowing, Providence could face a cash flow bind that will force it to miss crucial payments to its suppliers. Mike Riley suggests that the more eagle-eyed of these creditors will band together quickly to force a Chapter 11-style bankruptcy on the city. Think Central Falls writ large. From his analytical perspective as a technical expert on finance, Mr. Riley clearly regards this as a healthy and necessary first step for Providence. To him, it's a way to protect the city structure while it regroups as a more fiscally and financially stable enterprise. Politically, though, it would be a catastrophe for the old order. Ladies and gentlemen, Rhode Island is a city-state. If Providence catches that kind of financial flu, every taxpayer in Little Rhodey will have to pitch in to pay for its recovery. That could be a catastrophe for many a small taxpayer, and even for one or two municipalities that are currently just squeaking by on marginal net worths. If all this hits the fan around the mid-year, what will that do to voter confidence in the long-time supermajority here in local government? I have to agree with Mike Riley. The City of Providence is in no position to consider street railways, new trolley cars, bailouts for the Superman building, or even effective snow removal if we have another winter like last year's deluge. The mayor and his senior staff ought to set up in a bunker at City Hall right now and start managing the coming blizzard of financial woes if they are even be able to claim they headed off the chaos, because that was all they could do. Mark?
Ouch. Tough times are upon the city, April. I note Projo has reported that Providence City Councilman Wilbur Jennings is leading a fight to create a new class of automobile registration plates which would identify their users as members of that council. Representative Joseph Almeida has obliged him by introducing the necessary legislation. If there really is a financial meltdown in the city this year, I wonder if the Honorable Mr. Jennings will actually advertise his position by putting one of those new plates on his car. On what we all have to hope will be a lighter note. The 2016 legislative session got underway last week with all the optimism you would expect from the initial ceremonial launch. Writing in the Providence Journal, Kathy Gregg and Jennifer Bogdan detailed the celebratory reunion of lawmakers, lobbyists, hovering staffers, full-throated protesters, and the facilities workers who have to clean up after all of them. Let's get back to work, House Speaker Nick Mattiello declared from the rostrum. As a taxpayer and a keen observer of Rhode Island's legislative festivities, I truly hope the Speaker means what he said. The job of the chamber he leads is to contribute to the well-being of the hard-working, tax-paying men and women of Rhode Island. If Mr. Mattiello and his colleagues have noted anything about life in the Ocean State these days, they will have seen that there is a shortage of well-being. There is no shortage of demands for more resources from the preferred classes of unionized state workers, favored purveyors of legal services to the state, and money interests that will be all too happy to take more and more paper from our poorer and poorer public coffers. The legislature's job is to create an environment of order within which commerce and daily life can be conducted freely. This purpose is not well served by the emesis of new rules, fees, and regulations which might erupt from the State House if the Speaker's intonation was simply for show. The New England Patriots get back on the gridiron this week after a break to reflect on the rocky finish they made to the regular season. As they do, I have no doubt Bill Belichick's oft-repeated dictum will be ringing in their ears. Do your job. Speaker Mattiello seemed to echo that sentiment as he opened the House for business last week. All of us have a great deal riding on the results of this year's legislative session, so we all have to hope that the gentleman was sincere. April?
Thanks, Mark. Before we move on to the first segment of Representative Patricia Morgan's analysis of just how sincere the Speaker actually is, let's take a break to poke fun at the Rhode Island condition. I'm about to publicly ask our favorite question for the very first time. Are you kidding me? Rhode Island Board of Elections Executive Director Robert Cando is the poster boy for inept political hires here in Little Rhodey. One glance at his record, and a blind man could see he has to go. But this is the Ocean State, so his board of directors, political appointments all, can't bring themselves to pull the plug on his $140K plus salary. Are you kidding me? In a recent Providence Journal article, Jennifer Bogdan ticked off a short list of the executive director's transgressions. Last year, he permitted disgraced former Senator John Salona to appeal his $178,000 fine for campaign finance violations behind closed doors. I'm sure Salona appreciated being out of the glare for a change. Too bad the executive session violated the open meetings law, bringing legal action against the Board of Elections. Mr. Cando also slowed routine matters, such as budget approvals, to a virtual halt while battling with his board of directors. Last month, that board refused to adopt meeting minutes Cando had prepared, as they all felt he grossly misrepresented the proceedings to cast himself in a better light. He even summarily ruled that a request by a local parent-teachers organization to conduct a bake sale on school premises while the building was being used as a polling place would result in felony charges. He did so without first consulting counsel, apparently to sew up the votes of fans of the Rocky and Bullwinkle show for his Snidely Whiplash impression. Last September, the BOE Board of Directors voted to fire their executive director, but to withhold execution of that order for 120 days to give the gentleman time to mend his ways and improve his performance. That reprieve was up last week, and we're still awaiting word as to board action on the matter. Incidentally, this wouldn't be the first time Mr. Kando was fired from state employment, but what really makes him a poster boy for what's wrong with political privilege jobs is his board of directors' constant waffling that lets him get away with all that bad behavior. Ladies and gentlemen, take a page from the Donald Trump playbook. Your next line in this drama is, "You're fired." Are you kidding me?
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Mark Zaccaria, your news analysis host here on Common Sense TV. The fact that you're watching right now indicates that you find something that's beneficial about common sense. We certainly think so. That's why we do it each week, every week, and in fact, we're coming up to our one-year anniversary. You may have heard about the reception that we're planning to have at Perella's Restaurant in 311 Metacom Ave in Warren on January 31st, a Sunday afternoon, 1 till 3 p.m. It's actually a fundraiser. If we can get a few dollars, we could promote common sense to a wider audience, possibly even allowing us to grow, and certainly in growing in our production capacity. So if you feel passionate about common sense the way all of us on the cast and crew do, please come down Sunday, January 31st, 1 till 3 p.m. It's a Pro Bowl Sunday, so the game will probably be on the TV if you watch those kinds of things. And Perella's Restaurant in Warren, please loosen up with a couple of bucks, because we all will, and let's see if we can make Common Sense TV an even bigger deal than you and I have come to see it now. Thanks.
Welcome to Common Sense Rhode Island. This is the program where we try to make sense out of the policies that affect your life and come up with common sense solutions. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and we have with us today Monique Chartier of the Rhode Island Taxpayers. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for coming. Monique, you have been involved with the Rhode Island Taxpayers now for 10 years?
Yes.
It's a good long time, and you have really become a strong advocate for taxpayers, for the business community. Tell our viewers a little bit about Rhode Island Taxpayers.
Right. We advocate for individual and business taxpayers around the state, advocate for a better business climate, and we advocate for good government issues. And the idea is that a better business climate brings in businesses, which brings in jobs, and it expands the tax base. And that's the way you want to grow the economy, is through jobs, good paying jobs. And that's the best way to expand the economy, and Rhode Island desperately needs that because we've had a bad business climate for a very long time.
We desperately need that,
yes.
Exactly. Yes. One of the most valuable things that I think you do for me as a legislator is the newsletter.
Oh, thank you.
And I know that is a labor of love. You do it every day.
Yes.
You want to tell people how to subscribe to your newsletter? Because
yes.
I'd like everybody to get it. It's packed with information.
Thank you. You just send an email to info@ritaxpayers.com, and we'd be thrilled to add you to the list to receive our newsletter every week.
Great.
Every day.
Great. Now, you advocate for a better jobs climate, for growth.
Yes.
Growth
exactly.
in our economy.
Exactly.
Through jobs. In the last legislative session, the governor asked for and got a lot of money to give out as grants to businesses to hire more people at Commerce Corporation, the old Economic Development Corporation. What do you think about that approach? Because that's giving people money to bring them here. Good approach, bad approach?
No, it's entirely the wrong approach and a very bad way to do it. What we need to do is improve the business climate, reduce the regulations on businesses, reduce the taxes that are on businesses. There was just a letter to the editor last week of a gentleman who was, thinking of doing business, started to do business in Rhode Island, and he was just harassed for fees and so on by the government, by the state government. So no, we need to improve the business climate for all businesses and not be handing out grants and incentives to individual businesses to come here. It is entirely the wrong way. It's almost like corporate welfare to be handing out.
Well, it is corporate welfare. We call it an
is.
incentive, but we're saying we're going to take taxpayer dollars and give it to you.
Exactly.
Because you won't come on your own, by your own will. We're going to we're going to entice you to come here.
Exactly right, and that's the wrong reason, the wrong way. It's not sustainable, and it's not fair to other tax-paying businesses to do it that way.
Well, it doesn't help those that are already here that could grow and expand, and they're in the business already. They know what they do.
You're raising a great point. We don't know how many businesses are constrained now. Maybe they could grow a lot more, our existing businesses, if the regulatory climate was better, if the tax climate was better. That is almost certainly inhibiting the growth of a lot of businesses in Rhode Island, our poor business climate.
Yeah, for a long time I've been saying that we really need to work on the building blocks of our economy.
Absolutely correct.
And take off all of those impediments and the hindrances, the regulations, the litigation environment that we have, the energy costs.
Oh my gosh.
All those things really weigh on businesses, our existing businesses, and anyone who's looking at us and saying, well, maybe I'll go, well, maybe not. They look at all those things.
Oh, absolutely. And we keep winding up on the wrong end of all the rankings. There are national rankings of every state's business climate, and we're always on the wrong end of that. And so anybody naturally who's thinking of coming to Rhode Island or some other state, they're going to look at those rankings, those national rankings, and they're going to see that we're at the bottom of that, and they're going to stay away from Rhode Island, sad to say. But that's something we can fix, though. We can improve the business climate, improve the tax climate, and get ourselves higher on those rankings. Could I just mention one? You correctly raised those the incentives that were given to the governor's office. $25 million of that alone, $25 million of that alone is slated for the 195 land, which that's just remarkable. And I can't help but thinking that we learned that it's very expensive to construct, to build in Rhode Island, compared to even more expensive than New York and Boston. So the governor is actually going to be taking $25 million tax dollars as a way to promote development to overcome the high construction costs in the state. It's just completely the wrong way to do it. It is a very it completely highlights the problem that is in Rhode Island, that they have to take $25 million in tax dollars to overcome our construction climate, our business climate. That's just the wrong way to do it.
Yeah, and you're not the only voice that has been saying that. I think for a couple of years now that 195 land has been sitting there vacant.
Yes.
And I've heard business leaders saying, they're not coming because of corruption. Right? That we have a culture of corruption, right?
Former Speaker Fox is in jail right now.
Exactly. And there's that sense that to come here, you have to pay to play.
Yes.
That's something we really have to clean up with transparency.
Yes.
With ethics, bringing the Ethics Commission back in charge.
Absolutely.
Right? But then there's also just so many other impediments. When you look at our rankings, we're 50th, 49th, 47th.
Exactly.
We're not doing the hard work of actually fixing the foundation. Unless we fix the foundation, companies will only come here if we give them millions of dollars.
That's exactly right.
Right?
Yes, exactly. And it just seems like too many of our elected officials are not doing the right thing by the state. They seem to be doing more things to promote their own political career. Not all elected officials, but many elected officials are doing the wrong thing and just taking the easy way, as you said. But there are certain things that are not easy that have to be done to improve the business climate. But that's not being undertaken because I think that certain legislators' priorities are just wrong.
Well, we shouldn't have to pay companies to come here. They should come because it's a good place to do business.
Exactly.
And I understand that there's hard work, that you step on people's toes every time you try to fix something, take a regulation away, or change the laws, right, to take those impediments off. But if we're really thinking about the people of Rhode Island who need these jobs desperately, we've got to do it.
That's exactly right. The thought has to be for the betterment of the entire state as a whole. That has to be the focus, and that's what would happen if you focused on the business climate.
Yeah. If you were looking, I mentioned a couple. Do you have any issues that you think are the most important for us to work on?
Certainly the business climate is one, and reducing the tax burden on all Rhode Islanders would be another. There's also, though, some good government measures that need to be taken. As you said, the Ethics Commission has to have authority back over the General Assembly.
That cleans up that perception that we're corrupt.
Right? Exactly. And I'm just trying to think of what other good...
It would be nice if the governor would actually answer questions, too. forthrightly, but that's a transparency issue that I've talked about already.
$4 million that the state government spends in communications people, and they're not permitted to communicate. I am completely puzzled by that. Why
Well,
is that?
it's more about spinning the good things and trying to hide the bad things. But in that vein, let's talk about tolls just a little bit as a teaser to our next segment. Tolls are on the table.
Yes.
Finally, the governor has released tolling locations.
Yes.
To me, it looks like it's going to be really hard to avoid them, right?
Right.
The governor is proposing 14 barriers to business growth.
Yes.
You think the business climate is gonna benefit from those 14?
No, absolutely not. And let's talk about that for a minute, because those tolls, the myth, one of the myths the governor is trying to perpetuate is that the truckers and the drivers and the trucking companies will absorb the cost of those tolls. That will not happen. The tolls will be passed on to all Rhode Islanders, and this will become a highly regressive form of taxation on all Rhode Islanders. And that is...
Well, we're going to talk about that a little bit more in our next segment.
Okay.
Well, right now we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Last week, Keith Oliveria stepped down from his position as president of the Providence School Board. In a very public letter of resignation to Mayor Jorge Elorza, the educator eloquently cited repeated instances of political intrusion by the administration into the educational process in the city's schools. No one in this state will be shocked by allegations of political meddling. The publication of the damning letter by its author, however, is widely seen as political suicide, which only underscores the passion he felt on the topic of interference from the mayor. Are you kidding me? The founder of the Met School in Providence, Oliveria remains the Assistant Commissioner of Education in Rhode Island and the Chief Operating Officer and Director of Admissions for the Rhode Island Nurses Institute Middle College. His 5-year tenure as president of the Providence School Board is generally regarded as having been positive and productive. All of this lends credence to his charges of interference, which, as I indicated, nobody doubts. So, where is the mayor in all of this? Jorge Elorza seems to have his hands full after only 1 year on the job. The city's pension fund is continually found to be grossly inadequate to the post-employment obligations it faces. Auditor Markham LLC reports that Providence now boasts a cumulative operating deficit of $13.4 million with no good way to make up that ground. The Rhode Island Progressive Democrats, once staunch Elorza supporters, now castigate the mayor over his flip-flop on supporting tax breaks for powerful real estate developers, while ordinary property taxes soar. Perhaps worst of all, the entire East Side seems to be up in arms over a carport in Danny Amendola's driveway, which doesn't conform to the surrounding 18th century architecture. With all that as background noise, common sense wonders how the mayor has any time at all to meddle in the affairs of the school department. Is he drowning in an ocean of bad outcomes, or has he just stopped swimming? Coming as he did from a judicial background, perhaps Mayor Elorza is politically ham-fisted because he's never had to practice that dark art before. Either way, someone has to throw the man a life ring, or he seems destined to soon be going down for the third time. Do you think former Mayor Buddy Cianci can be persuaded to cut short his honeymoon and return to the city to bail out his former rival? Are you kidding me?
Welcome back. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and today we have with us Monique Chartier of the Rhode Island Taxpayers Association. Monique has been an incredibly strong voice and a clear voice on the tolling issue. Just before we took the break, you were talking about the pass-through effect of tolls. You know, the governor basically is saying, no, don't worry about that out-of-state trucks are going to pay for these tolls, that it's not going to affect consumers because it's all out-of-state trucking companies. Is that true?
No, that's not true at all.
She has an economic impact study that says it.
Right. That's a very interesting question also, by the way, because there have been serious flaws found in that economic impact study.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Serious flaws.
Yes,
but
exactly.
All right,
exactly. So one of the myths, there's several myths that the governor has been trying to perpetuate about the, passing tolls, and one of them is that the drivers and the trucks and the trucking companies will altruistically absorb the cost of those tolls. They will not. They will pass that on to to all Rhode Islanders, to Rhode Island businesses. And so that then becomes a highly regressive tax on all Rhode Islanders. So it is not, this is an enormous myth that
So those out-of-state trucks, the ones that are just passing through, let's focus on them. We have obviously trucks that come from Connecticut, pass through Rhode Island. They don't stop. They go straight up into Boston. They will just pay they'll just pay the tolls. That won't affect consumers here because they're not delivering anything here.
Yeah, no, not at all. Of course not. They'll have to pass that on to consumers. But the other
Do
thing
you
that
think
you're
they'll
talking,
still go through Rhode Island?
well, no, they won't. That's part of the problem.
There you go.
Yeah, they're
right?
going to divert around. They're very easy to and I checked with somebody this morning actually in the trucking industry. Very easy to take $3.95 up, avoid Rhode Island altogether. Truckers can do math. $11.30 Mass Turnpike toll is a lot less than the $30 that they're talking about
right.
for Rhode Island. So,
Yes, I've actually had truckers tell me they've studied it, and it adds 5 miles or something to
Right,
their trip,
right.
And takes $20 off of their cost.
So hello.
They're absolutely going to use $3.95.
Right, exactly.
Now, when they use $3.95, have you heard about the IFTA taxes, which are gas
yes,
taxes? We'll
yes.
lose those.
Yes, exactly. That's a great point. Those trucks will no longer be coming through Rhode Island, so that will reduce our revenue that we get from the IFTA tax, which is a national tax that gets paid to each state for every mile that the truck drives through that state. So has that been taken into consideration? I don't know.
I don't believe so.
my.
I've looked at that economic impact study myself, and I
Yes.
don't think it's in there.
Gosh.
But now let's talk about the trucks that come in and deliver things. I
Yes.
mean, 80% of our goods are delivered by trucks.
Exactly.
To our grocery stores, pharmacies, all of the department stores,
Yes.
everything that we
Yes.
buy.
Gasoline that we buy.
You think, and I know you're going to answer this, how will that affect consumers?
Of course, it will raise prices on everything because the cost of the toll has to be passed along to the consumer because the business naturally is not in it for charity. They have to, take all the costs into consideration when they set their prices, and the tolls are going to be passed along to all Rhode Islanders and to Rhode Island businesses. So it'll be Rhode Islanders who will be picking up the tolls, not out-of-state truckers.
Yeah. I mean, if you think of a grocery store, seriously, every week they get hundreds of
yes.
deliveries,
Yes.
right? And each delivery, $30 each way, $60 times hundreds.
Yes.
It does add to the bottom
Absolutely
line.
does.
And that's not going to be absorbed by the grocery store.
No.
Or by the trucking company. It's going to be absorbed by consumers. They won't see that tax, though.
No, you're absolutely right. You're right. That's not going to be like an item that'll be at the bottom of their receipt. It's just going to be, oh, the price is higher now. Oh, gosh.
Kind of a hidden tax in there,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
Like we hide fees and other
Yes.
taxes, this is just going to be another hidden tax.
Exactly right.
But it hurts Rhode Island families.
Oh, very much so, because already Rhode Island has already a high cost of living, so this is just going to add to it.
Yeah. So then another piece of this, all right, so we've talked about two pieces. Another piece is the trucking industry that's right here in Rhode Island.
Yes.
Not all of them actually deliver within Rhode Island. They might pick up things here in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and they deliver them somewhere else. So what happens to them?
Right. I mean, so that
Right,
means
they're
that
little small trucking concerns. They
Yes.
have the trucks. They're trying to keep people employed.
Yes.
They have to stay competitive
Right.
with other trucking companies
And
around the country.
if they have to raise their prices because of the tolls, that makes them less competitive. That means they'll get less business. At that point, is their business jeopardized? So are they now choosing between having to pay for the tolls and continuing? It jeopardizes their operations by raising the cost for them to do business in the state of Rhode Island.
Sure, they actually have to make a payroll.
Right.
And if they're paying more in tolls and can't pass it on because they're actually delivering out of state, they have to stay competitive.
Right.
Who does it hurt?
Well, it hurts their employees.
Yeah.
Because they end up, right, and maybe they
It
have to...
hurts their employees.
Exactly. Maybe they have to lay off employees or reduce pay. So it's inflicted on somebody else, not what we're being told it'll be. The cost of the toll will not be borne by the trucking company. It'll be the workers and residents in Rhode Island who will pay the price.
Right, and that actually is in the economic impact study. They're assuming that they will lose jobs in the trucking industry.
Okay.
And somehow they seem to think that's fine. I'm sure that's not fine to those those families.
And we are literally now choosing winners and losers, as we said previously. Now we're choosing a winning and a losing industry.
And what concerns me is we don't have to go down that road.
That's exactly right. No, we do not.
We don't have to choose construction jobs over trucking jobs.
No.
We can take care of both of them just by prioritizing bridge repair in our budget. The money's there.
Exactly right. And you've done a tremendous job finding those cuts that can be made within the budget and showing how we can pay for bridge repairs within the budget by cutting things that are less essential than bridge safety. You've done a tremendous job identifying those cuts and showing how we can do pay-as-you-go so that we don't have to bear the tremendous cost of tolls.
Right, and we still can have a lot of construction jobs, more than the governor is promising.
Yes.
And we can keep all those trucking jobs as well.
Exactly right.
Because those are good paying jobs.
Yes.
They pay well, they keep families together and financially secure. Why would we say they're not as worthy? I don't get the thought process there.
No, and it's worse than that, though, because I think that construction jobs are temporary, aren't they? Once the bridge is repaired, then the job no longer exists, but trucking jobs stay here indefinitely. I mean, in theory, those are permanent jobs.
Yeah, the economic impact study says there's 6,000 jobs. I believe that the governor is actually counting the same 600 jobs 10 times each year.
Okay, I see.
Right, because they came up with something called man-job hours.
Yes.
And then they divide them by the number of hours a full-time worker has, and that's how you get the jobs.
I see.
But I really believe that they count them every year.
Okay.
So it's the same 600 jobs counted every year.
Okay.
And the 100 jobs we're going to lose in the trucking industry aren't offsetting it.
Right.
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 But let's talk a little bit about small businesses.
Yes.
They get a lot of deliveries too.
Absolutely.
And they send their finished products out by trucks.
Yes, they do.
How do you think it's going to affect small businesses?
It just becomes another burden in a state that's already high, very costly to do business in. It's just going to raise the cost of doing business in the state. And the other thing I wanted to mention also is that there's talk of letting certain trucking companies in Rhode Island offset the cost of the tolls. That just becomes another burden, another regulation that the business has to deal with. That is not a solution, a permanent solution at all.
Yeah, and that wasn't actually included in the economic impact study either. But we'll save that for another time.
Okay.
And right now we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Phil West is undoubtedly the Dean of Good Government Advocates here in the Ocean State. In a New Year's opinion piece for Projo, West commented on all the hyped political promises that attended the opening of the new legislative session. He also noted one New Year's resolution our elected leaders somehow overlooked. They didn't mention anything about reinstating Ethics Commission authority over sitting members of the House and Senate. Are you kidding me? Students of ancient Rhode Island history will have heard that the very first president of the Senate, William V. Irons, took at least $70,000 in undisclosed insurance commissions from the CVS Corporation. The Ethics Commissions felt that he had his hand in the cookie jar, in that while he was accepting this income, he was also actively scuttling pharmacy choice bills. Irons tried to negotiate a quiet settlement for the misunderstanding, but the Ethics Commissioners remained prickly on the subject of doing the right thing while in office. So the Senate president sued, claiming that the state's constitution's speech and debate clause made him immune from prosecution. This is Rhode Island. The Supreme Court agreed, and since that time, no sitting legislator falls under Ethics Commission jurisdiction. By the way, that all happened in 2009. There can be no doubt that a little bit of enforced ethics would have gone a long way as a small cabal of lawmakers cooked up the 38 Studios bond deal in 2010. I'd argue that we could dearly use some of that attention today, as our great and general court ponders the big bond, a similar boondoggle, but one that's at least 15 times bigger in dollar value. Phil West argued eloquently for a ballot question to authorize a constitutional amendment which moves our elected officials back under the protective umbrella of the Ethics Commission. After all, they'd operated there quite nicely from the time the commission was organized in 1976. Now, wouldn't that be a New Year's resolution for the General Assembly? Do you think we'll see it? Are you kidding me?
Welcome back. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and today we have with us Monique Chartier of the Rhode Island Taxpayers. Monique, we've been talking a little bit about tolls. Yes. I know we started talking about the business climate.
Yes.
And about what it takes to make us a strong business climate. A
Yes.
business climate, same thing to me as a jobs climate.
Exactly right.
Right?
Exactly
If
right.
companies are healthy, they can hire people.
And pay good wages.
And pay good wages.
Exactly.
So that segues to tolls.
Yes.
The governor just released a list of 14 tolling locations sprinkled all around Rhode Island.
Yes.
To me, they are barriers
They
to
absolutely-
prosperity.
Yes, absolutely, they are.
Somehow, the mantra out there is that out-of-state trucks are going to be paying. They're the only ones going through these toll booths.
Right, right.
I think
Which
you
is
and I,
not the case.
Well, we just talked about it. There's $3.95.
Yes.
Those out-of-state trucks are going to go right by Rhode Island. We're going to not get their gas taxes anymore.
The IFTA gas taxes, that's right.
And we're not getting any toll revenue from them either.
Correct.
So the revenue projections are going, right, the revenue projections are that we're going to make a certain amount of money from this tolling proposal out
Yes,
there
yes.
to fix our bridges. We're not going to make it from out-of-state truckers. They're
No.
simply not coming.
They've already said, trucking companies have said, we're going to go around.
Well, you mentioned UPS.
Yeah.
They're pulling their operations out of Rhode Island.
They moved 10 tractor-trailer jobs out of Rhode Island.
That's the first thing they've
Oh,
moved.
exactly,
Right?
exactly.
I've heard other large concerns are moving their operations. It's so easy.
Right, right. It's
Right?
a small state. It's so easy just to move your operations over the border to Seekonk or Attleboro or Fall River. Absolutely, it's so easy to do.
And I've talked with other large companies that deliver into and out of Rhode Island, and they have told me they've already keyed this into their logistics departments, and the logistics departments are figuring out what they can do to insulate themselves from tolls.
It's perfectly natural that they would do that. They aren't going to just sit there and take the money out of their pocket. They're going to try and figure out how to minimize the toll that they pay, and when they can't do that, they're going to pass it on to the consumers in Rhode Island.
Well, to the point is we're not going to get that revenue from those toll booths.
No.
So what happens then? We've got all these 14 toll booths sprinkled around Rhode Island. We know the big trucks, the out-of-state trucks, they're not going through them.
Correct.
So we still have to make that revenue.
We do, but there's lots of other vehicles in the state that they can add. They add to the list of vehicles that will be tolled. So such as cars.
Such as cars.
Yes. Yes, they can.
Vans.
Yep. Vans.
Furniture delivery trucks.
Smaller trucks. Absolutely.
Milk trucks.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot of commercial vehicles. I would imagine they would start there.
Right. Exactly.
Because Rhode Island always punishes the business community.
It
right?
seems that way far too often.
Well, a lot of times I think those owners don't live in the district, right?
Right.
So they don't get a vote.
That's a good point. Yes.
So, yeah, we just seem to punish businesses like they're the evil doers.
Yes.
Somehow.
I look at it that Rhode Island, unfortunately, too often sees businesses as hostages and not as valued members of the community.
It's just the wrong-headed way to look at it, and I don't know how that culture developed here in Rhode Island, that we think of them as either pots of gold.
Right.
Right? That, of course, we should be taking from them because they have a business.
Right.
When we do that, we weaken them.
Yes, absolutely.
And we weaken their ability to grow and provide jobs and raises and promotions.
Exactly right.
To our residents.
Yes, that's right.
I don't know how it developed in Rhode Island, but I've talked with business owners, and I'm sure you have over your tenure, who talk about it being not just a bad business climate, but a hostile one.
Unfortunately, that's so.
I mean, that's a difference where they feel that they are under siege, and when the state or the local authorities come, that they are looking to punish them.
Yes. I'm sure that's not the intent, but that's the result of all of the regulations and the taxes that there are required of business. And we need to note here that I think maybe there's a perception, an erroneous perception, that all companies in Rhode Island are Coca-Cola, and they're huge companies. In fact, 80 to 90% of businesses in Rhode Island are small businesses, so they can't handle this regulatory and tax burden. They're small businesses. They're on the margin.
And is it 90% of our jobs come from those small businesses?
Right. So I don't know that figure, but I mean that 80 to 90% of businesses are small businesses. So that's an enormous number.
Enormous number.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So we know the revenue projections really aren't. I know in my bones. I mean, I couldn't put it on paper or show you data because the tolls haven't started yet. But I just know that revenue from out-of-state trucks is not going to materialize.
No, it's not your bones. It's the trucking industry has said we will go around the state. So we're not. It's not just you're guessing. We've been told we're going to go around the state. So that's not a guess.
So we're still going to have to make that revenue.
Yes.
Does it stay at 18-wheelers?
I think it makes its way gradually down to smaller and smaller trucks, as you said, and eventually I think it's...
And even they'll then start making those logistic moves,
yes, right,
to keep from having to pay.
Correct.
The toll.
Correct. To minimize the tolls, absolutely.
It's a detriment to them not to.
Right, of course.
Right? They have to survive.
Yes, they do have to survive.
So then who gets it?
And then they makes
Then who gets the tolls?
The cars.
The cars, right?
Yes.
I also, I'm on the finance committee, and
Yes.
I can tell you that if you look at our budget projections out years, we have huge bills for Medicaid coming up because of the expansion of the Affordable Care Act.
Yes.
We just have structural problems in our budget that we haven't addressed. For instance, the pension. I know we did pension reform, but as you know, the growth of that pension our pension assets has not been 7.5%.
Yes,
it's been less than 1% this year, which means that the required annual contribution grows with each year.
Right.
Huge burden or a huge grab of dollars from our state budget. When we see those kinds of projected deficits, what do you think lawmakers will do when they see toll booths out there?
Right. It's going to be so easy to say, we have another potential source of revenue. Let's just expand. We got the gantries in place. Why don't we just expand tolls to all vehicles, including cars in the state?
And make them higher, make them wider.
Right. Right. Exactly.
Exactly.
And
I think it becomes just the easy way out to say, well, we can't think of another fee. We can't raise income taxes. Hey, we got tolls over there. Tolls are a tax.
Yeah, we hate to do it, but we have to do it.
Yeah, we hate to do it, but we have a deficit. We got to cover it.
Right, exactly. And
right.
Don't forget the lost revenue that's going to be because of the expansion of gaming in other states around us. There's a projected loss of revenue that Rhode Island is going to face because of the gaming in other states. Another reason, oh darn, we lost that revenue, so we have to make it up someplace.
I just think it becomes irresistible,
of course it does,
to go to tolls. But now the Speaker has said he will not, as long as he's in that chair, put it on cars. How? Is he going to be there for 30 years?
I know. Is he going to be there forever? I mean, he may sincerely mean that he himself will not put them on cars, but he's not going to be there forever. And certainly the governor is term limited at some point. So other elected officials will come in, and they're going to see this as a very tempting way to get revenue.
Yeah, speakers are regularly changed.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
So he can't promise that's forever.
Right. Right.
Right.
And my concern is that he may sincerely mean it himself now, but if revenue projections start coming in badly, he may say, I know I said that and I really meant it, but now we have a real problem. So
we have a problem. We have a crisis.
Right. We have a crisis.
Right?
So it looks like it's going to go on to cars.
Yeah, I think it becomes just an irresistible magnet out there. I also noticed that in the governor's legislation, it's not the speaker who sets the tolls.
No.
It's the director, a bureaucrat.
An unelected official. It's just completely unacceptable.
All right, we're going to take a break on that unacceptableness, and we'll be right back.
A week ago, newly appointed Rhode Island Commissioner of Education Ken Wagner really shook up what might otherwise have been a by-the-numbers meeting of the state's Council on Elementary and Secondary Education. In short, Wagner suggested we actually teach kids, even if we have to blow up the current status quo to do that. Are you kidding me? Who let that bomb-throwing reactionary into our public education system? Well, I guess it was Governor Raimondo. Here's what her education commissioner suggested: making curricula relevant to daily life, offering more challenging courses to younger and younger students, allowing public school principals to be CEOs. That means putting principals in charge of budgets, hiring and firing, operating hours, disciplinary codes, and accepting students into their schools. Wagner also urged parental choice, which would let their kids go to any public school they could get into, or any charter school or private school with tuition assistance from the public systems. According to Linda Borg, who reported on the speech for the Providence Journal, the commissioner's ideas were enthusiastically received. The educators present, such as Central Falls Superintendent Victor Capellan, liked Wagner's vision and were already in touch with charter schools and mayoral academies in their jurisdictions. Most Rhode Islanders would like to see this kind of leadership from the governor ignite a revolution in public education here. Those that would not are mostly leaders of the National Education Association of Rhode Island and the American Federation of Teachers. How do you think they'll react to all of this? Are you kidding me?
Line on set.
Welcome back to Common Sense. I'm Representative Patricia Morgan, and we have with us today Monique Chartier of the Rhode Island Taxpayers. We've been talking about the business climate here and about the damage that tolls will do to it.
To our already bad business climate, that's right.
Right. It's just going to be detrimental to businesses, to
Yes.
small businesses, to consumers,
Yes.
to the trucking industry. It is going to hurt.
It is.
There's just no way you can take $60 million out of an economy and expect it not to have an impact.
Absolutely correct.
But as you know, Monique, in the Republican policy group, we spent the summer and we looked through the budget and we found sources of money that are specific, that are sustainable, that don't hurt any social programs, and that don't affect any vital services.
That's right. You did a terrific service by doing that, because you've shown us that we can find the spending to fix our bridges within the budget. You did a terrific service to the public by doing that.
Well, that's what we Republicans do. I think the governor wanted to frame it as we either tax the trucks or we raise the gas tax. And we've given them this third alternative,
Yes.
which we call BridgeWorks, but most people would understand as the no tolls plan or as the pay-as-you-go plan.
Correct.
I think
Correct.
that's how the speaker likes to talk about it, pay-as-you-go. Why are they resisting, in your opinion, if you want to talk to this? We raise more money. We raise $875 million
Pay as you go.
pay as you go over 10 years.
Yes.
The governor's raising only $620.
And astonishingly, she actually made the assertion that her plan put more money into the bridge repairs than yours did. It was a complete falsehood when she said that. Yours puts in far more into the bridges repairs.
More money, more construction jobs.
Yes.
You don't hurt the truckers.
Correct.
Why are they insisting on talking about tolls?
I can only think that they think that it's hard work to go in and find the cuts that need to be made within the budget. I assume that they just want to take the easy way out, and it's just much easier to do it this way, to just simply add yet another fee, another government fee, rather than going in and doing the right thing, which is to find the cuts within the budget. And I think also that it may be that they see this as a potential future revenue source, that once the bridges are paid for, then this could be a revenue source to pick up other shortfalls in the budget.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. One of the things that we took money from was corporate welfare.
Yes.
We're giving $500,000 a year to Twin River.
Why would we do that?
That's corporate welfare.
Yes, it sure is.
I thought Democrats were supposed to be against that, but that's an aside. The movie tax credit.
Yes.
Another place where we pay for 75%, taxpayers pay 75% of the wages that come from the movie tax credit.
Yeah, that was an eye-opener for me. I didn't know that. That's not good.
That's corporate welfare.
Yes,
So
it is.
are we putting corporate welfare as being more important
Yes,
than taking a weight off of consumers' backs?
that's certainly what it seems like. That's exactly right. Corporate welfare has got a higher priority, and it should not.
It should not. It should not. You and I have talked about the two big sources of money that are in our plan, and one of them is the DMV fees.
Yes, perfectly reasonable
Yeah.
for you to do that, us to do that.
DMV fees were raised 2 years ago.
Yes.
You were involved in the Zaccaria River Bridge
Yes.
tolling.
Fighting the toll on the Zaccaria River Bridge, yes.
Yes, and as a result of not putting the tolls on the Zaccaria River Bridge, the General Assembly raised DMV fees.
Yes.
Do you realize that we raised them 300%? So license renewals, registrations, the
Inspection fee, I think?
300%.
Astonishing.
And we also added, we indexed the gas tax to inflation.
Wow.
Over the next 3 years, the gas tax is going to go up 9%.
Wow.
We are not talking about an insignificant amount of money.
No.
This year it's about 24 million. It rises over the next 10 years to 50 million, 59 million, something like that. It's a huge amount of money.
Wow.
But when we passed that, I wasn't in favor of it because I, again, thought we should find the money in our existing budget. But we passed it. And at the time, the promise was,
It would go into the infrastructure,
that's right,
and it's been diverted, apparently.
that it would be used for bridge repair. So we're just saying we're holding you to your promise. The other pot of money, we actually created 4 years ago. So every 2 years, we're fixing the bridge repair problem. So 2 years ago, we gave them a huge pile of money.
Yes.
4 years ago, we created what's known as RICAP. And RICAP is the Rhode Island Capital Asset Protection Program plan. We put $120 million a year into that.
Wow. That's a lot of money.
Right.
That's a lot of money.
It is to fix buildings, but it is also, the stated purpose at the time was to keep the Department of Transportation from having to borrow. We understood that, and DOT kept coming to us and saying, our problem is we borrowed too much in the past.
Right.
And now it's gobbling up our budget.
Right.
Well, they use some of that for matching funds, but there's still a whole lot more in there.
Right.
We're only asking for 20 million of it. Those two sources of money give us $45 million this year alone.
That's most of the problem right there. That's most
Well,
of the
with the
problem.
federal,
Yes, the new federal
dollars
Oh my
coming in,
gosh, Yes.
it more than covers the bill.
Yes, it does.
I just don't understand, and maybe you, taxpayers and citizens, can ask your legislators why they are insisting upon tolling when there are two huge pots of money in the budget that were promised to transportation, to bridges, and then we have federal dollars which are promised to bridges.
Right.
Why do we have to hurt consumers?
Right, and we don't have to do that. I mean, the citizens can get involved. They can contact their legislators. They can go to stoptollsri.com and contact your legislator and sign the petition. And you can also contact your legislators directly. You can have a very strong voice and say, we're not doing tolls, and we're going to hold you accountable in the fall. And please do not do this, because I will hold you accountable in the fall. It is very important. Citizens can be very powerful. They were powerful previously when they stopped the tolls on the Zaccaria River Bridge, when they stopped the stadium, when they got the master lever eliminated. So citizens have been very powerful, and they can be powerful again. This is a very huge issue, and I think that they will see that and stay engaged and make their message clear, and it's important that they do so.
Yeah, you're so right. The citizens, you viewers, can be more powerful than you know you are.
Yes.
If you do something.
Yes.
Act.
Yes.
Act now, because this is going to be passed in a month if
Yes, it
anybody, if the leaders up there have their way.
Time is short.
Time is short. So what can people do? First of all, I think they should contact you for the newsletter. And how do they do
Thank
that
you.
again?
Send an email to info@ritaxpayers.com.
info@ritaxpayers.com. They can also go to
stoptollsri.com and sign the petition and contact their legislator. Absolutely.
Okay, and you make it easy for them to contact their legislator on that website.
Yes.
It is stoptollsrhodeisland.com, and there's already a pre-made letter. They just have to put the name in.
Right.
Any other tips for them?
Just contact the legislators directly, because Tom Ward said in an excellent column today that if a legislator gets 30 contacts from his constituents about a particular issue, that's a big deal for the legislator. So we can see that legislators, that citizens can be very powerful when it comes to dealing with their legislators.
Okay, time to act is now. If you don't want tolls, you need to contact your representative and senator. Monique has made it easy for you. Do it now. Tell your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers, everybody you talk to, demand that they contact their legislator. You can stop this. Thanks for coming.
Did you watch the Jeopardy show in 2011 when Ken Jennings and Brad Ritter took on IBM's Watson? Now, I missed it, but have since seen segments, so I got the message. I wondered what happened to Watson. So after some digging, I know what Watson is up to. Seems cognitive computing has come of age. Watson was developed by the folks at IBM specifically to see if a computer could beat the two best Jeopardy contestants of all time. Now, it took a couple of years of development, but they did it so well that the boys lost the match. Now, as Jennings put it on a TED.com appearance in February of 2013, it was, quote, frigging demoralizing, unquote. Jennings had won 74 consecutive Jeopardy matches, so he was very confident that he could beat any computer. Now, he was trained as a computer analyst, so he knew that the computer technology, when the plan was hatched, wasn't ready to beat him. So he said, quote, let the games begin. The IBM folks kept at it for 2 more years. Now, Jennings went into the show not so sure anymore. Now, Watson is a set of algorithms and APIs. The equipment took up a room full of servers, so the actual Jeopardy game was played at the IBM facility, not the usual Jeopardy studio. It was a fascinating show to watch, with Watson in the middle glowing and talking and beating up the boys. Jennings said to himself afterward, Ken, we don't need you anymore. I recall that computers needed lots of programmers to bang out the codes that got things done. Now, the growth of unstructured data has produced what is referred to as cognitive computing. We don't need the programmers anymore, and the new Watsons of this world can learn on their own. Now, Jennings makes the point that the new computers have the advantage of both volume and time. Seems every 18 months the amount of information stored doubles. A single human mind can't keep up. Think about how many times you have gone to the internet and asked questions. Then there's the time angle. You get your answers very quickly. So it makes sense to give these computers all the data we have available and let them work out the best way to solve problems. The computers are doing what our brains do. They access relevant data to come to conclusions based on the experience of what is likely to work. Example, at Memorial Kettering Cancer Center in New York, Watson Oncology is hard at work reading through patient records, published studies, and pharmaceutical data. It then provides a probabilistic solution to treatments that offer the best chance of success for any one patient. Forbes.com has an article with a contribution from Bernard Marr that talks to the main elements of the Watson way. Firstly, Watson was designed to be talked to. Like Siri, Watson listens and talks back. Watson can be taught to have language skills, including picking up subtle nuances, idiosyncrasies, and colloquialisms of human language. Now, the IBM folks are working on putting Watson to use in Japan. Have to learn Japanese first. The second element is the capacity for new data. Watson can read through web pages, journals, books, newspapers, and whatever else it is fed. During the Jeopardy show, Watson was reading through 200 million pages of information and spitting out answers in 3 seconds. Jennings commented on how disconcerting it was to watch Watson pushing the button so rapidly. Now, the third element is Watson's ability to learn. All the new data entered into the system allows better solutions each time a probable answer is generated. Watson is in operation across 26 industries today, hard at work at financial services, travel, and retail in 36 countries, with more to come. Now, this one I'm not too sure I like, but it seems that IBM has access to the 6,000 tweets sent around the world every second. There is now an IBM staff with specialists helping other businesses get at the wealth of information on our lives, thoughts, feelings, hopes, and dreams that everybody's tweeting about. Ouch! I am not sure I'm comfortable with the possibility that any one person, a corporation, or the state will be able to learn anything about me with Watson providing the data. IBM says they now have 300 partners in the cognitive computing world. They range from veterinary medicine to children's toys. What's next? Next program, I am focusing on the other disturbing trend, and that would be facial recognition. That one is also happening worldwide and is largely unregulated. Thank you for watching, and God bless.